mayor brings attention-getting arrivals and notable departures, too. But this year in Boston, an unusually large number of major names either exited public life or got ready to ride off into the sunset. And as WGBH News reporter Adam Riley tells us, many of them leave some pretty big shoes to fill.
He entered state politics as a virtual unknown, cruised to 2 big wins, and became a national political force.
It's time for Democrats to grow a backbone and stand up for what we believe.
But now, after 8 years in the corner office, Governor Deval Patrick is returning to private life. His replacement, Republican Charlie Baker, who already knows his way around Beacon Hill.
Thank you very much.
Not every political departure this year was voluntary. After 9 terms in office, Congressman John Tierney was ousted by fellow Democrat Seth Moulton after a contentious primary that had Tierney crying foul.
Cynical politics, basically.
And when Scott Brown tried to resume his U.S. Senate career in New Hampshire, voters there said, nah.
Oh, brother.
It wasn't just politicians who headed for the exits. At the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce, Paul Guzzi will call it quits after 18 years. After 20 years of buzz,
isn't it time to take a new path?
Museum of Fine Arts director Malcolm Rogers is moving on as well, leaving behind a bigger, stronger MFA. Of course, notable endings can pave the way for noteworthy beginnings. Andres Nelsons took the reins of the Boston Symphony Orchestra and got off to a rousing start. Newly minted Boston Mayor Marty Walsh had a strong first year, too.
We are a city upon a hill.
But of all the comings and goings in Boston this year, one loomed especially large.
The mayor, who never sought higher office, has one now.
In November, the city bid farewell to the man we used to call the urban mechanic. But for many, Tom Menino will always be mayor for life.
Yeah, it's funny. I think about him every day. I live downtown, and I just muse over and over what would he think about the protests downtown. How would he handle it? Not that Marty Walsh hasn't done a good job. I just can't help but going back there. Or the closing of the Long Island shelter. Or he hated the idea of the Olympics. And the Olympics coming, he thought it was ridiculous. But now here we are, one step closer. So his reach is just so,
I don't know if the Long Island shelter closing would be something that he'd want to talk about, given inaction, which led to this problem that the current mayor has to do. But they left off one notable departure. You, Emily, why weren't you in this package?
I'm not totally departing.
I know, it's only part.
Well, so are most of those people.
Okay. Well, the thing about Mayor Menino, too, is the loss of potential. That what he had to give back, not just to the city, but to the students that he was going to be teaching, the other mayors across the country. We've talked about it at length, but what a visionary he was and how much time and energy he had he would be dedicating. We know he wasn't going to be sitting home with Angela and the grandkids every single day. So there's a loss there.
I would have liked to have seen his interaction with the incoming governor, too.
I mean, when you're out and you're talking to people and you're musing about kind of personally what you think he would think. I think people think that he's constantly a presence within residents, the minds of residents of Boston. And we have a new mayor, but the package called him, used to be, was called
Mayor for Life.
Mayor for Life. What was called the urban mechanic. But I think people still quite use present tense when they, and he will always be known as the urban mechanic, and quite often still is. So
the Mayor for Life.
I don't think there's a past tense when referencing the mayor.
There's a whole generation of Bostonians. I referenced my daughter, 16 years old. She had never experienced.
Yeah, my daughter either.
The same thing. And I used to kid with him all the time. Obviously, would just say, "Hey, Mayor, you've been mayor since I was in first grade." And he'd hate when I'd say that. That obviously was an exaggeration. But yeah, it was this whole thing that he has, this whole generation.
And think how he impacted my daughter, too, who's 14, thinks you're supposed to run into the mayor of a major city everywhere you go. We adopted her from China. She was here one day and met the mayor because he was at, a thing in Mission Hill just hanging out. And so that impact on young Americans and young citizens of Boston is going to be a great legacy.
I needed to call the Mayor of Quincy one day, and my secretary gave me the wrong number, and I got through to Tom Menino.
No.
And I'm thinking I'm talking to the Mayor of Quincy, and we're having a 15-minute conversation, and he keeps saying to me, "Where's the street? Where's the street?" And then I realized I recognized the voice, and I said, "Mr. Mayor, there's been a terrible mistake. I'm trying to get the Mayor of Quincy." And I had to do a little damage control, and I remembered he was on Greater Boston the night before. So to do a little damage control, I said, Mayor, great job on Greater Boston last night. And he said, yeah, have a nice day. And he hung up on me.
That's great.
Classic story. Classic. He kept saying to me over and over, where's the street? Where's the street?
So we had a great governor's race this year, too. Two very qualified, good candidates. I mean, it came down to 40,000 votes. But, you know, I think there's going to be a better balance on Beacon Hill, do you think?
Well, everybody says that, but I take exception coming at it from the legislative branch. We need more balance in the legislature.
Well,
we're outnumbered 36 to 4. We have 2 new faces coming into the Senate on the Republican side. But yeah, the governor can provide a little bit of a check, but the legislature controls the purse strings, and I'd like to see more balance there. But Charlie Baker, I think, has the potential to be a great governor.
A little bit of controversy on the media side, and I know I'm part of the media, but I look at this and I look at Emily because I saw an interview of her with Evan Falchuk here.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Oh, yeah.
And I happen to side on Evan's side on this. I don't like it when we in the media determine who gets to be in a debate. If you get on the ballot, you should have a right and an access just as much as the other guys. I really have a problem with us in the media saying, no, we know better than you, and we're going to only have these points of views on there.
That's true to a point, but you got to have, especially when you come right down to the wire, you got to have some kind of a threshold for a cutoff. They except Evan, most of the other people were included to a point, but you know, you'd end up with, it's just, we've had it, we've done it. I'll show you some of the past fights.
But I mean, he, on some level, he lost the race for governor, but he did have a win this year because he was able to, you know, launch the party that he and the party that he was looking,
which is really part of his mission.
I think
he'll be back.
I think the local media is a lot fairer than the national media. The way that the debate commission now rigs the presidential races, it's virtually impossible for a third-party candidate to ever take hold in this country. And I think that's unfortunate.
But I think the conversation starts there locally, and then it goes on.
Right.
All right, and we're starting it. All right, my thanks tonight to Sue O'Connell, Senator Bob Hedlund, Alberto Vasallo, and Akila Johnson. Thank you so much for being with us.